The transport shuttle shook as it docked with the massive warship. Kim Tae-ho gripped his bag tighter and looked out the small window. The Kelvarian ship called Time's Eternal Fang Times stretched out like a metal beast in the darkness of space. It was at least 50 times bigger than any human vessel he had ever seen. "First time on an alien ship?" asked the pilot, a woman with tired eyes. Tae-ho nodded. "First time leaving Earth, actually." The pilot smiled sadly. "Good luck, chef. You'll need it." The airlock opened with a hiss. Tae-ho stepped into a corridor that smelled like metal and something else he couldn't name. Everything was huge. The ceiling rose at least 15 feet above his head. The doors were massive slabs of dark steel. He felt like a child walking through a giant's house. A young woman ran up to him, slightly out of breath. She was human, thank God. "Chef Kim? I'm Lee Ji-woo, engineer. I'm supposed to show you around. Just call me Tae-ho," he said, shaking her hand. Ji-woo grabbed one of his bags. "I have to warn you. The Kelvarians aren't exactly excited about this exchange program. Especially the Marines. I figured as much." They walked through corridor after corridor. Tae-ho saw his first Kelvarian when they turned a corner. The creature stood at least 8 feet tall, covered in dark green scales that seemed to shimmer under the ship's lights. Its eyes were yellow with vertical slits. Like a lizard, it looked down at Tae-ho, snorted, and kept walking. "That was polite, actually," Ji-woo whispered. The mess hall was enormous. Metal tables stretched in long rows. The ceiling disappeared into shadows above. Tae-ho saw dispensers, synthesizers, and machines he didn't recognize. No stoves, no ovens, no proper workspace. "This is where you'll work," Ji-woo said. "The Kelvarians don't really cook. They make nutrient paste and protein blocks. Efficient, but tastes like cardboard." Tae-ho set down his bags and walked around the kitchen. He touched the cold metal surfaces. "I'll need real equipment. Brought some tools with me. But I'll need heat sources, proper storage, cutting surfaces." "I can help with that," Ji-woo said. "I'm good with modifications." A loud bang made them both jump. The mess hall doors slammed open. Kelvarian Marines poured in, at least 50 of them. Their scales were various shades of green, red, and brown. They wore armor that looked like it could stop a tank round. Each one carried weapons that hummed with power. They saw Tae-ho and stopped. "Is that the human?" one of them growled. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. Another Marine laughed, a harsh barking sound. "That tiny thing? That's supposed to feed warriors?" A massive Kelvarian pushed through the crowd. His scales were deep red with black stripes. Scars crossed his face and arms. He stopped in front of Tae-ho and looked down. Way down. "I am Vex Tar, squad leader," he said. Tae-ho met his eyes. "I am. You look weak, small, soft." Vex Tar poked Tae-ho's chest with one clawed finger. "What can you possibly teach warriors about anything? I'm not here to teach you to fight," Tae-ho said calmly. "I'm here to feed you." The Marines burst into laughter. Vex Tar's scales rippled with colors, darkening to almost black. Ji-woo had told him that meant anger. "We don't need soft human food," Vex Tar said. "We are Kelvarian Marines. We eat to survive, not for pleasure." "Then you've never had good food," Tae-ho said. The laughter stopped. Vex Tar leaned closer. His breath smelled like copper and heat. "What did you say?" "I said you've never had good food. If you had, you'd know it's more than survival." For a moment, Tae-ho thought the Marine might hit him. Vex Tar's claws twitched. His yellow eyes narrowed. Then, he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Prove it," Vex Tar said. "You have 1 week. Feed us your human food. If we are not impressed, you leave this ship in shame. Agreed?" Tae-ho knew a challenge when he heard one. Agreed. Vex Tar turned to his Marines. "You hear that? The tiny human thinks he can impress us. This will be entertaining. Vextar. Vextar turned to his marines. Vextar. 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 The marines laughed again as they moved to the dispensers to get their nutrient paste. Taeho watched them eat the gray sludge without expression. They consumed it like fuel. Nothing more. Jiwoo pulled him aside. Are you crazy? You just challenged a Kelvarian squad leader. He challenged me first, Taeho said. Besides, I meant what I said. They've never had good food. They might throw you out an airlock. Then I better cook well. That night, Taeho unpacked his supplies. He had brought knives from Earth, his grandfather's whetstone, spices in sealed containers, and a few precious ingredients. Jiwoo helped him set up a small cooking station using modified equipment. The quartermaster controls the food supplies, Jiwoo explained. His name is Draknis. He's not friendly. None of them seem friendly. Draknis is worse. He thinks humans are weak parasites. Taeho sighed. Great. The next morning, he went to find the quartermaster. The supply room was massive, filled with containers and freezers. Draknis was an older Kelvarian, with gray scales and cold eyes. What do you want, human? I need ingredients. Fresh protein, vegetables if you have them, fats, starches. Draknis snorted. We have nutrient paste and protein blocks. That is all warriors need. I was told I could requisition. You were told wrong. Draknis turned his back. Taeho felt anger rising but pushed it down. Getting angry wouldn't help. I'll make do with what I have then. Back in the kitchen, he looked at his limited supplies. Jiwoo had managed to get him some basic Kelvarian rations. Raw protein blocks that smelled like nothing. Dried vegetables that looked ancient. Some kind of grain that might be edible. It's not much, Jiwoo said. I've worked with less. Taeho picked up a protein block. When I was training, my master gave me rice and salt for a week. Told me to make something worth eating. This is the same challenge. He spent the day preparing. He hydrated the vegetables, tested the grain, examined the protein. The Kelvarians were carnivores mostly, but Jiwoo's research showed they could digest plant matter. Their sense of smell was incredible. Their taste buds highly sensitive. That evening, he made a simple stew. He cut the protein into chunks, browned it carefully over a heat source Jiwoo had rigged up. He added the rehydrated vegetables, the grain, water, and some of his precious earth spices. Not many, just enough to enhance the natural flavors. The smell filled the mess hall. Taeho saw a few Marines stop and sniff the air, confused. When the Marines came for dinner, Vextar looked at the bowls Taeho had prepared. What is this? Stew. Protein. Vegetables. Grain. Simple but nourishing. Vextar picked up a bowl. The other Marines watched. He sniffed it, his scales rippling with colors Taeho didn't understand. Then he dumped the entire bowl on the floor. We are not your pets to experiment on, Vextar said. One by one, the other Marines dumped their bowls at Taeho's feet. The stew spread across the floor in a pool of wasted food and effort. Some of them laughed. Others just looked at him with contempt. Taeho stood there, watching his work destroyed. Jiwoo looked horrified. Vextar leaned close. 6 days left, human. The Marines left to get their usual nutrient paste. Taeho knelt down and started cleaning the floor. Jiwoo helped him, neither speaking. I'm sorry, she finally said. Don't be. Taeho scrubbed at the spilled stew. This was just the first move. Every battle has one. This isn't a battle, Taeho smiled grimly. Everything is a battle. They think I'll give up. They think I'm weak. He stood up, looking at the mess. They're wrong. Jiwoo saw something in his eyes then, a determination that reminded her why Earth had sent this particular chef. Kim Tae-ho hadn't been chosen just because he could cook. He'd been chosen because he didn't quit. "What's your plan?" she asked. "Learn everything I can about them. Watch. Listen. Understand what they need, not what they think they want." That's very philosophical for a chef. My grandfather used to say that cooking is 90% understanding your guest and 10% technique. Teho wrung out his cleaning cloth. "I have 6 days to understand Kelvarian warriors. Better get started." That night, while the ship slept, Teho didn't. He studied every file Jiwoo could find about Kelvarian culture, biology, and history. He learned about their warrior traditions, their honor codes, their ways of showing respect, and he began to form a plan. Teho spent the next 3 days watching the Marines. He woke before them and stayed up after they slept. He observed everything. The way they moved, talked, ate, the way they treated their weapons with more care than their own bodies, the way they never smiled, except when discussing combat. Jiwoo brought him more research files each evening. "I found something interesting," she said on the third night. "Kelvarian biology is fascinating. Their sense of smell is about 40 times stronger than humans, and their taste buds can detect flavors we can't even imagine." Teho looked up from the protein block he was examining. "So the nutrient paste must taste horrible to them. Probably. But they see eating as a weakness. Warriors shouldn't care about taste. Only efficiency. That's sad," Teho said. "Not in Kelvarian culture. There's more, though." Jiwoo pulled up a file on her tablet. Traditional Kelvarian meals were ceremonial. They hunted prey and consumed it raw, immediately after the kill. It was about honoring the defeated enemy by taking their strength. Teho leaned forward, interested. "So food has meaning to them. It's just buried under military efficiency." "Exactly. When the Empire industrialized, they lost those traditions. Now, it's all about keeping soldiers fueled for combat. Then I need to remind them what they lost." The next morning, Vex Tar announced that Teho would join combat training. "If you cannot survive a fight, you cannot feed fighters," the squad leader declared. "Warriors only respect strength. Warriors. Warriors only." Teho knew this was meant to humiliate him. The training room was massive, filled with equipment that looked designed to break bodies. 20 Marines stood in formation, watching him with amusement. "You will spar with Raxton," Vextar said, gesturing to a young Marine with bright green scales. "He is our weakest fighter. Try not to die." Raxton stepped forward. Even the weakest Kelvarian Marine stood 7 feet tall and was covered in muscle. Teho barely reached his chest. "I don't want to hurt you, human," Raxton said, almost kindly. "Then don't hold back," Teho replied. "I'm here to learn." What followed was painful. Raxton moved with incredible speed, his scaled body twisting in ways that seemed impossible. Teho tried to defend himself, using techniques from Earth martial arts. But it was like fighting a hurricane. Within seconds, he was on the ground. "Again," Teho said, getting up. Raxton looked confused but complied. Again, Teho went down. And again. And again. After the 10th time, blood dripped from his nose. His ribs ached. Every muscle screamed. "Enough," Vextar said. "You have proven your weakness." "Again," Teho said, standing up. The Marines fell silent. Vextar's scales shifted to a dark orange. "You cannot win. I know. But I'm not here to win. I'm here to learn how you move, how you fight, how you think." Teho wiped blood from his face. Again, something changed in Vextar's eyes. He nodded slowly. "Again. Again. Vexes perfected. Again. Vexes." Teho lasted 30 seconds that time, then 40. By the 20th bout, he could predict some of Raxton's movements. He still lost every time, but he was learning. When Vextar finally called an end, Teho could barely walk. Raxton helped him up, surprisingly gentle. "You have courage, human," the young Marine said. Foolish courage. But courage. Back in his quarters, Jiwoo patched his wounds. You're insane. What were you trying to prove? That I respect them enough to try, Taeho said, wincing as she wrapped his ribs. They think I'm soft because I cook. I needed to show them I understand what they value. By getting beaten up? By not quitting. Taeho looked at his swollen hands. In their culture, surrender is shameful. I didn't surrender. That night, Taeho couldn't sleep because of the pain. He limped to the kitchen around midnight to review his notes. He was surprised to find someone already there. A female Kelvarian stood near his cooking station. She was smaller than the other Marines. Maybe only 7 feet tall. With scales that shifted between blue and green. She jumped when she saw him. I did not mean to intrude, she said quickly. It's fine. Can't sleep either? Taeho moved to his workspace, trying not to limp too obviously. I was curious about the smell from earlier. When you made that stew. She looked embarrassed. I am Park Min-seo. I know it is a human name. It was given to me as an honor when I trained with Earth Forces last year. Kim Taeho, he said, bowing slightly. You trained with humans? Yes. Cultural exchange program, like yours. I learned much. Min-seo moved closer. The humans fed me many foods. I had never tasted anything like them before. When I returned here, I missed it. Taeho felt a spark of hope. What did you miss most? There was a dish. Grilled meat with a dark coating that cracked when you bit it. Inside, it was soft and full of juice. The humans called it steak. Her scales rippled with soft gold. I dream about it sometimes. I can make you something, Taeho said. If you want. Min-seo looked toward the door nervously. If Vextar found out, he won't. Just 2 people sharing a meal. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Please. Taeho worked quickly despite his injuries. He had one precious piece of preserved earth beef in his personal supplies. He'd been saving it. But this felt important. He heated his makeshift grill and seasoned the meat simply. Salt, pepper, a touch of garlic powder. The smell filled the kitchen. Min-seo's scales shifted through a rainbow of colors. I remember this smell, she whispered. When the steak was done, Taeho sliced it and placed it on a plate. The outside was perfectly crusted. The inside, a beautiful pink. Juice pooled around the meat. Min-seo took a bite and closed her eyes. Her scales blazed with brilliant gold. I forgot how good this was. How is it possible? It is just meat, heat, and seasoning. But it is more than the sum of these parts. That's cooking, Taeho said, sitting down carefully. It's chemistry, yes. But it's also understanding what the ingredients can become. Kelvarians say that caring about food makes you weak. That warriors should only eat for fuel. Min-seo took another bite. But this does not make me feel weak. It makes me feel alive. Food is life, Taeho said. It's memories, culture, love. My grandmother used to say that cooking for someone is another way of saying you care if they live or die. Min-seo ate in silence for a while. When she finished, she looked at him seriously. The Marines mock you because they are afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that you are right. That they have given up something important for efficiency. Afraid that feeling pleasure from food will make them soft. She paused. Vextar is the worst because he is the most afraid. Why? He lost his entire squad in a battle 3 years ago. He survived by eating nutrient paste for 6 weeks while trapped in a destroyed ship. Now he sees any pleasure in food as disrespect to those who died eating paste. Taeho absorbed this information. What about General Crossvell? I haven't seen him yet. AR. Numberware. Min-seo's scales turned dark gray. The general does not eat. Not really. He takes water and ash, nothing more. Why? His homeworld's capital was destroyed 2 months ago. Millions died, including his family. In Kelvarian tradition, a warrior in mourning eats only ash and water until honor is restored through victory or death. Mincio stood up. The general is killing himself slowly. The whole crew knows it, but no one can stop him. It is tradition. After Mincio left, Tejo sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. He understood now. The Marines weren't just being cruel. They were warriors who had disconnected from anything that made them feel vulnerable. Food was vulnerability. Taste was vulnerability. Pleasure was weakness. And their general was dying of grief. Over the next 2 days, Mincio visited again. Tejo made her simple dishes. Nothing fancy. Grilled protein with herb rubs. Roasted vegetables with olive oil. Each time, her scales would glow with colors that meant happiness. She told him more about Kelvarian culture, about the honor codes that governed every aspect of their lives, about how warriors were taught from childhood to suppress emotions, about the old traditions that had been forgotten. There used to be feast halls, she said one night. After great victories, warriors would gather and share the hunt. Not nutrient paste, but real food, prepared with fire and skill. My grandmother remembered them. She said it was how warriors became brothers, not just squad mates. What happened to those traditions? The empire grew too large. Too many soldiers to feed personally. Industrialization made food cheap and efficient. The feast halls closed. Now we are more efficient, yes. But Mincio trailed off. Inversed. But something was lost. Tejo finished. Yes. On the 6th day, Tejo made his decision. He found Vextar in the training room. I want to make a formal challenge, Tejo said. Vextar looked up from the weapon he was cleaning. Another sparring match? You enjoy pain? No. A cooking challenge. I will prepare one meal for the entire battalion. If you are not impressed enough to show respect, I will leave voluntarily. You won't need to send me away in shame. I'll go on my own, and if we are impressed, then you eat my food without complaint for the rest of my assignment. Vextar's scales rippled with amusement. You are either very brave or very stupid, human. Maybe both. When? Tomorrow night. I need time to prepare. Vextar stood up. He towered over Tejo, his red and black scales gleaming. Agreed. Tomorrow night, you will cook for 200 Marines. We will judge your food. And human? He leaned down. We will not be kind. I don't want kindness, Tejo said. I want honesty. After Vextar left, Tejo allowed himself to shake. He had just bet everything on one meal. If he failed, he would disgrace not just himself, but Earth's entire cultural exchange program. Jiwoo found him in the kitchen. I heard what you did. Are you ready? No, Tejo said honestly. But I'm out of time. Tomorrow, I cook the most important meal of my life. What do you need? Everything we can get. And a miracle. They worked through the night, preparing. The morning of the feast, Tejo woke up sore but determined. He had 18 hours to prepare a meal that would change everything. No pressure at all. Jiwoo had managed to requisition emergency diplomatic supplies. Tejo opened the containers carefully, like they held treasure. In a way, they did. Real vegetables from Earth, preserved meats, spices he thought he wouldn't see again. And, most precious of all, 3 containers of ingredients from Kelvarian worlds that were meant for formal ceremonies. How did you get all this? Tejo asked. Jiwoo smiled tiredly. I may have implied that refusing could cause an interstellar incident. The supply officer didn't want that on his record. You're brilliant. I know. Now cook something amazing so I don't get in trouble. Tejo laid out his plan. 4 courses, each one building on the last. Each one telling a story. He had learned that Kelvarians understood the world through stories of battle and honor. His meal would be both. First, he started with the protein. The diplomatic supplies included a cut of meat from a Kelvarian hunting beast called a threx. It was considered a warrior's prize. Taeho examined it carefully. The meat was dark red, almost purple, with a grain that suggested it would be tough if not handled correctly. He began the process of dry aging it, using techniques his grandfather had taught him: salt, time, and patience. While that worked, he prepared the other courses. The soup would come next. He took bones from the protein rations and began a broth. This would take hours. He added vegetables, herbs from Earth, and a Kelvarian plant that Minseo said was used in old ceremonial drinks. The kitchen filled with a smell that was both familiar and alien. Ji Woo helped him prepare vegetables. They worked in comfortable silence, chopping and seasoning. Around midday, Minseo appeared. "I heard what you are doing," she said quietly. "The whole ship knows. Vex-Tar has been telling everyone. They are placing bets on how badly you will fail." "Good," Taeho said, not looking up from his work. "Let them expect failure. Make success sweeter. You are very confident. I'm terrified. But my grandfather used to say that fear and excitement are the same thing. Just depends on how you look at it." Minseo watched him work for a moment. "Can I help?" "Absolutely." With 3 of them working, the preparation went faster. Minseo's Kelvarian strength made quick work of tasks that would have exhausted Taeho. She broke down the larger cuts of protein, cleaned equipment, and kept the workspace organized. By evening, the soup was ready. Taeho tasted it and nearly cried. It was perfect. Rich, deep, full of flavor that would unfold in layers. The Kelvarian plant added an earthiness that balanced the meat's richness. The main course was the threx meat. Taeho had let it age for hours, then seasoned it with a crust of crushed Kelvarian nuts and earth peppercorns. He would sear it right before serving, creating a crust that would crack under teeth and release juice. For the final course, Taeho had created something special. He melted dark chocolate from Earth with a bitter Kelvarian root that was traditionally consumed during morning rituals. The combination was strange but powerful. Sweet and bitter, life and death, hope and loss, all mixed together. "That smells incredible," Jiwoo said, leaning over the pot. "It's symbolic," Taeho explained. "Kelvarians understand symbolism. This dessert represents that sorrow and joy are connected. You can't have one without understanding the other. It's 7 them. They're classed whether looked at ease. It's not pastig number way." Taeho explained Symbolindar. At 7 in the evening, Marines began filing into the mess hall. They came in their combat armor, treating this like a battle. Which, Taeho supposed, it was. Vex-Tar stood at the entrance, directing his troops to their seats. 200 Kelvarian warriors filled the hall. The noise was incredible. They talked, laughed, made jokes about the human chef. Taeho could hear them from the kitchen. "I bet he serves nutrient paste with fancy names," one said. "I bet he serves nothing and runs away," another replied. Vex-Tar's voice cut through the noise. "Silence. The human will explain his offering." "Silence. Silence." Taeho stepped out of the kitchen. 200 pairs of yellow eyes turned to him. The silence was heavier than the noise had been. He walked to the center of the hall, trying not to show his nervousness. "Warriors of the Eternal Fang," he began. "I am Kim Taeho, chef from Earth. Tonight, I offer you 4 courses. Each one represents something I have learned about your culture." "Get on with it," someone shouted. Others laughed. Taeho continued calmly. "The first course honors your tradition of the hunt. The second represents patience and time. The third celebrates strength and victory. The fourth acknowledges loss and hope together." "Pretty words," Vex-Tar called out. "Let us taste if your cooking matches them." Jiwoo and Minseo helped Taeho serve the first course. Small plates, each holding a piece of seared Threx meat, seasoned simply to enhance its natural flavor. The meat had been cut into medallions, each one perfectly cooked. The smell hit the Marines first. Tejo watched their scales ripple with colors. Confusion mostly, with touches of what he hoped was interest. Kelvarian noses were powerful, and the scent of properly cooked meat was probably overwhelming. "This is Threx meat," a Marine said, surprised. "Where did you get Threx?" "Diplomatic supplies," Tejo answered. "I am told Threx is a warrior's prize." The Marine looked at his plate with new respect. Vextar took the first bite. His entire body went still. His scales, normally red and black, flickered with colors Tejo had never seen. Purple, gold, deep blue. Every Marine watched their leader. Vextar chewed slowly, swallowed, looked at his plate. Then at Tejo. "What have you done to this meat?" he asked quietly. "I honored it. Treated it with respect. Enhanced its natural strength. With seasoning. And heat." Tejo met his eyes. "On Earth, we believe that cooking prey shows respect for its sacrifice." Vextar took another bite. Around the hall, other Marines began eating. The silence that followed was not the mocking silence from before. This was the silence of shock. Tejo heard someone whisper, "I have never tasted anything like this." The second course was the soup. Jiwoo and Minseo brought out bowls of the rich broth. Steam rose from each one, carrying smells that mixed earth and kelvar. "This soup has been cooking for 18 hours, Tejo explained. "In human culture, we believe that time and patience create depth. The longer something cooks, the more complex it becomes. Like warriors who train for years to master combat." "AC," a Marine snorted. "It is just soup." "Taste it first," Vextar said. "Then judge." The Marine did. His scales blazed gold. He drank the entire bowl, without speaking. Around the hall, Marines consumed the soup in silence. Some closed their eyes. Others stared at their bowls like they held secrets. Tejo saw one older Marine with gray scales actually wipe his eyes. The third course was the main event. Tejo had saved the largest Threx cuts for this. He seared them on his modified grill, creating a crust that cracked and popped. The meat was served with roasted vegetables that had been tossed in olive oil and earth herbs. When the plates went out, the smell made several Marines actually stand up. Their instincts were responding to the scent of cooked prey. Tejo had learned that Kelvarians were predators. This smell spoke to something deep in their biology. Vextar cut into his portion. The crust cracked perfectly. Juice ran onto the plate. He took a bite, and this time, his scales went completely gold. Pure, brilliant gold. "This is," he started, then stopped. "I have no words." Other Marines were having similar reactions. Some ate slowly, savoring every bite. Others consumed their portions quickly, then looked sad it was gone. Raxton, the young Marine who had sparred with Tejo, was openly crying. "Why do I feel like this?" Raxton asked. "It is just food." "No," Minseo said softly. "It is more than food. It is what we lost when we forgot how to eat like warriors." The fourth course was the most dangerous. Tejo brought out small bowls of the chocolate and bitter root mixture. It looked like dark mud. The smell was complex, sweet, and harsh together. "This final course is not comfortable," Tejo said to the assembled Marines. "It represents something difficult. On Earth, we have a saying, joy and sorrow are two sides of the same coin. This dessert is both sweet and bitter. You cannot separate them." "Why would we want to eat something bitter?" a Marine asked. "Because warriors know loss," Tejo said simply. "And sometimes, acknowledging loss is the only way to find hope again." The hall went very quiet. Several Marines looked uncomfortable. Vextar stared at his bowl. "This is about the general, isn't it?" Vextar said. You know he starves himself in mourning. I know that great warriors can be destroyed by grief, Taeho replied. I know that sometimes we need to be reminded that feeling pain is not weakness. It is proof we loved something enough to miss it. Vextar picked up his spoon. He tasted the dessert. His scales shifted to dark purple, then gold, then colors Taeho couldn't name. The squad leader set down his spoon and stood up. This human, Vextar said loudly, has done something I thought impossible. The hall held its breath. He has made me remember what food can be. Not fuel, not efficiency, but connection, memory, honor. Vextar looked at Taeho. I mocked you. We all did. We were wrong. Before Taeho could respond, the massive doors at the end of the hall opened. Every Marine immediately stood at attention. Taeho turned to see who had entered. General Crossvel stood in the doorway. The general was massive, even for a Kelvarian. At least 9 feet tall, covered in scales that should have been brilliant red but were now dull gray, the color of ash. His face was gaunt. His eyes were hollow. He looked like death walking. I smelled something, the general said, his voice rough. Something I have not smelled in months. What is this? Vextar stepped forward. General, the human chef has prepared a feast. He challenged us to judge his cooking. General Crossvel's eyes found Taeho. You are the human from the exchange program. Yes, General. Kim Taeho. I was told you were weak, soft, not worthy of feeding my Marines. You were told correctly about the first two. Taeho said, I am weak and soft compared to your warriors, but I hope I have proven worthy. Aske. Taeho. 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 The general walked into the hall. Every step seemed to take effort. There is 1 plate remaining? Yes, General. I saved it for you. I do not eat, Crossvel said. I cannot. Not until honor is restored. With respect, General, I know your tradition. But I made this meal for all your warriors, including you. Taeho gestured to the last plate. Just 1 taste. If you hate it, I will not insist. General Crossvel stared at the food. His scales rippled slightly, showing hints of color beneath the gray. He looked at his Marines, all standing silently. Then, back at Taeho. 1 taste, he agreed. General Crossvel moved to the table like a man walking to his execution. Every Marine in the hall watched in absolute silence. Taeho had set the general's plate at the head of the longest table. All 4 courses were arranged carefully. Still warm, still perfect. The general sat down slowly. The chair groaned under his weight. Up close, Taeho could see how much the morning had destroyed him. The general's scales were cracked in places. His claws were dull. His eyes, which should have been bright yellow, were faded to pale gold. I have not eaten solid food in 63 days, Crossvel said quietly. Only ash and water, as tradition demands. I know, General, Taeho replied. Mincio told me. The general's eyes found the young Marine across the hall. Mincio stood at attention, her scales showing fear. You have been speaking to the human? Yes, General. I visited Earth last year. I learned about their food. When Chef Kim arrived, I wanted to help him understand us. I see. The general's expression was unreadable. Then he gestured to the empty seat beside him. Sit with me, Chef Kim. If I am to eat your food, you should witness it. Taeho sat down. His hands were shaking, so he hid them under the table. The most powerful warrior on the ship sat inches away, looking like death itself. General Crossvel picked up the utensils. They looked tiny in his massive clawed hands. He started with the first course, the seared Threx medallion. He sniffed it first, his nostrils flaring. This smell, he whispered. I know this smell. From before. Before what, General? Before we became efficient. Before we forgot. Crossfell cut a piece of the meat. My grandfather used to hunt threx on our homeworld. He would cook them over open fire and share them with his squad. I was young, but I remember the smell. The general placed the meat in his mouth. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, his entire body shuddered. His scales, gray and lifeless, suddenly flickered with color. Just a flash. Red and gold like embers under ash. Then gray again. He chewed slowly, his eyes closed. When he swallowed, a sound escaped him. Something between a sigh and a sob. I had forgotten, he said. Forgotten that food could be more than fuel. That it could carry memory. Food is memory, General. Tejo said softly. Every dish my grandmother made. I remember her hands. Every meal my grandfather cooked. I remember his voice teaching me. When we eat food made with care, we are connected to those who made it and those who taught them. Crossesvel opened his eyes. They were wet. My homeworld is gone. Destroyed. Everyone I loved turned to ash. And I have been eating ash to remember them. But this. He looked at the small piece of meat. This honors them better than ash ever could. He finished the first course in silence, then moved to the soup. The broth steamed, filling the air with its complex smell. The general lifted the bowl and drank. This time, the colors in his scales lasted longer. Red bloomed across his chest. Gold traced down his arms. The gray was losing its hold. 18 hours you cooked this? He asked. Yes, General. Patience, time, dedication. Crossvel set down the bowl, empty. These are warrior virtues. I see them in this soup. Vextar spoke from across the hall. General, the human has shown us that we abandoned something important. He is right. We forgot what it means to eat as warriors, not as machines. I see that, Vextar. The general moved to the main course. The large cut of threx with its cracked crust and juice pooling on the plate. This looks like victory should taste. He cut into it. The crust shattered perfectly. The meat inside was perfectly cooked, tender but with the strength of a predator. General Crossesvel took a large bite. His scales exploded with color. Brilliant red covered his body like fire. Gold traced every scar. Even colors Tejo had never seen before. Emerald greens and deep purples swirled across the general's massive frame. The gray was completely gone, burned away by the intensity of his reaction. The general ate the entire portion without stopping. Juice ran down his chin. He didn't care. Around the hall, Marines watched their commander return to life before their eyes. When he finished, Crossville sat back and looked at his hands. The scales were bright and healthy. The cracks had disappeared. His claws gleamed sharp and dark again. I feel strong, he said, wonder in his voice. For the first time in months, I feel like myself. That is what real food does, General, Tejo said. It doesn't just fill your stomach. It feeds your spirit. You are very wise for someone so young and soft, Tejo smiled. My grandfather was a chef for 70 years. He taught me that cooking is not about the food. It is about the people who eat it. Every dish is a gift. Every meal is a conversation. General Crossesvel looked at the final course. The chocolate and bitter root mixture sat in its bowl, dark and complex. Min Seo told you about our mourning traditions. Yes, General. And you made this knowing what it represents? Yes. Because I believe that acknowledging pain is not the same as being destroyed by it. Tejo met the general's eyes. On Earth, we say that we honor the dead by living well, by finding joy again. Not forgetting them, but carrying them with us while we continue forward. Intending. That is not the Kelvarian way. I know. But maybe the Kelvarian way could expand. Not abandon tradition, but add to it. The general picked up the spoon. He tasted the dessert. The sweet chocolate and bitter root mixed in his mouth. His scales shifted to deep purple, the color of grief. Then slowly turned to gold. This is what loss tastes like, Crossvell said quietly. Bitter and sweet together. Painful but beautiful. He took another bite. I have been eating ash because I thought suffering honored my family. But they would not want me to destroy myself. They would want me to live, to fight, to lead my warriors. Tears ran down the general's scaled face. He didn't hide them. In Kelverian culture, showing emotion was considered weak, but General Crossvell cried openly in front of his entire battalion. My wife loved sweet things, he said. My children would fight over desserts at dinner. I had forgotten that. Only remembered their deaths, not their lives. He finished the bowl. Thank you, Chef Kim. You have given me permission to remember them with joy, not just pain. Thanks for watching. And left en live why? We can see. Then for mention. And why like the scream. And see that is raw spine. And we can see that is very them. And we can see that is very them. Then General Crossvell did something no one expected. He stood up, his massive frame towering over everyone, and dropped to one knee. Before Taeho, the sound of 200 Marines gasping filled the hall. General? No, Taeho started. Silence, Crossvell said, but gently. I have conquered 12 worlds in my military career. I have broken enemy armies and defeated warriors that legends are made of. But you, small human chef, have defeated something I could not. He placed his clawed hand over his heart. You defeated my despair. You reminded me what it means to live, not just survive. The general's voice rang out across the hall. This is the highest honor I can give. Kim, Taeho, human chef of Earth, you have my respect. You have my gratitude. You have my oath as a warrior that I will defend your life as fiercely as I defend my own. Taeho felt tears on his own face now. You are more worthy than you know. Crossvell stood up and turned to face his Marines. All of you, witness this. This human has shown us what we lost. He has reminded us that warriors fight not just to kill, but to protect what makes life worth living. Food, family, memory, joy. These are not weaknesses. They are what we fight for. Vex Tar was the first to move. The squad leader stood, walked to the center of the hall, and dropped to one knee facing Taeho. I mocked you. I threw your food on the floor. I tried to break you in combat. I was wrong about everything. Forgive me, Chef Kim. Before Taeho could respond, Raxton knelt. Then Minseo. Then another Marine, and another, like a wave spreading across the hall. All 200 Kelverian Marines dropped to one knee. The silence was complete. 200 elite alien warriors, each one capable of destroying a human with ease, knelt before a chef who barely reached their chests. Ji Woo watched from the kitchen doorway, her hand over her mouth, recording everything on her tablet. General Crossvell spoke again. Rise, all of you. Today we learned something vital. Strength comes in forms we do not always recognize. This human has no weapons, no armor, no combat training worth mentioning. But he has skill that brought a general back from the edge of death. The Marines stood. Their scales were bright with colors that meant respect, awe, and something else. Something that looked like hope. Chef Kim, the general said, turning to Taeho. I have a request. Anything, General. Teach us. Teach my warriors to cook as you do. Show us how to turn food into memory and honor. Help us rebuild what we lost. Taeho bowed deeply. It would be my honor, General. Good. Starting tomorrow, you will have full access to all supplies. Quartermaster Draknis will assist you or answer to me personally. The general's eyes gleamed with what might have been amusement. I think he will choose to assist. A ripple of laughter went through the Marines. Even Vextar smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. "There is one more thing," General Crossavell said. "In 63 days, I have eaten only ash. Tonight, I have eaten food that brought me back to life. This is a debt I can never fully repay. But I can offer you this." He removed a medallion from around his neck. It was made of dark metal, engraved with symbols Taeho didn't recognize. "This is the mark of the Eternal Fang. It means you are one of us, a warrior of this ship, with all the rights and protections that brings." The general placed the medallion around Taeho's neck. It was heavy, warm from the general's body heat. "You are no longer just a chef on assignment," Crossvell said. "You are family." The Marines roared their approval. The sound was deafening, joyful, alive. They began chanting Taeho's name, mixing it with Kelvarian words he didn't know, but understood meant respect. Later, after the hall had cleared and Ji-woo had helped clean up, Taeho sat in the quiet kitchen. The medallion hung around his neck. His body ached from exhaustion. His hands were raw from cooking. But he had never felt more satisfied in his life. Min Seo appeared in the doorway. "Chef Kim? May I speak with you?" "Of course. And please, just call me Taeho." She entered and sat across from him. "What you did tonight will change everything. Not just on this ship, but throughout the fleet. Word will spread. Other ships will want human chefs. The Kelvarian High Council will hear about this. I just cooked dinner." "No." Min Seo's scales glowed soft gold. "You saved our general's life. And you reminded an entire battalion what it means to be alive. Not just to fight." She paused. "I want to learn. Really learn. Will you teach me to cook like you do?" Taeho smiled. "I would love that. But I have to warn you. It takes years to master." "I have time. Warriors are patient when learning new combat skills. I will be patient learning this." 3. Then we start tomorrow. After Min Seo left, Taeho finally let himself feel the weight of what had happened. He had come to this ship expecting hostility. He had received it, but through patience, respect, and understanding, he had turned enemies into family. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. "The best meals are not about the food. They are about the people who share them." Tonight, Taeho had shared a meal that changed lives, and he was just getting started. The news spread through the Kelvarian fleet faster than Taeho could have imagined. Within 3 days, every ship in the sector knew the story of the human chef who brought General Crossesvel back from mourning. Within a week, it had reached the Kelvarian homeworld. Taeho's life aboard the Times, Eternal Fang Times, changed completely. The mess hall that had been a place of mockery became his workshop. Ji-woo helped him modify the entire kitchen, installing proper ovens, grills, and storage. Quartermaster Draknis, who had refused him supplies before, now personally ensured he had everything he needed. "The general spoke to me," Draknis admitted one morning, bringing in containers of premium ingredients. "He made it very clear that interfering with your work would be considered treason. I am sorry he threatened you." Taeho said, "Do not be. I was wrong to dismiss you. I thought efficiency was everything, but I see now that there are different kinds of strength." The old Kelvarian scales shifted to respectful blue. "My granddaughter served on your homeworld. She wrote to me about human food. I thought she was being foolish. I should have listened. I do'n't." Next 4. Every day, Marines volunteered to learn cooking. Taeho started with basic skills: how to properly cut vegetables, how to season meat, how to build flavors in layers. The warriors approached cooking with the same intensity they brought to combat training. Vextar was his most dedicated student. The squad leader spent every free moment in the kitchen, practicing knife techniques and learning to control heat. His large, clawed hands struggled with delicate work at first, but he refused to quit. "I threw your stew on the floor," Vextar said one afternoon while chopping vegetables. "That shame burns in me. I will master this skill to prove I have learned from my mistake. You already proved that when you knelt, Teho said. Kneeling was easy. Learning to cook is harder. Vextar looked at his chopped vegetables. They were uneven and rough. This is terrible. It is better than yesterday. That is not a high standard. Teho laughed. Over weeks, he found himself becoming friends with beings he had once feared. Raxton turned out to have a gift for baking, his careful nature perfect for measuring ingredients. Minseo became his assistant chef, her quick mind understanding flavor combinations instinctively. General Crossesvel visited the kitchen often. The general had gained back all his lost weight. His scales were brilliant, red, and gold again. He looked 10 years younger. The High Council has requested I bring you to the home world, Crossvel said during one visit. They want you to prepare a feast for the military leadership. This is a great honor. I am not sure I am ready for something that important, Teho admitted. You brought me back from death. You can handle some politicians and generals. Crossvel smiled. A frightening sight with all those teeth. Besides, I will be there. No one will disrespect you while I breathe. But before the trip to the homeworld, something else happened. The Times Eternal Fang Times received a distress call. A human colony on the border was under attack by raiders. The ship jumped to respond. Teho felt the ship's engines roar to life. Alarms blared through the corridors. Marines rushed to battle stations in organized chaos. Within an hour, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the colony. The battle was fierce. Teho and Jiwoo stayed in the kitchen, out of the way. They could hear weapons fire even through the thick hull. The ship shook from impacts. Lights flickered. At one point, something exploded close enough that the kitchen door buckled. Are we going to die? Jiwoo asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Not if I can help it, Teho replied, though his own fear was sharp in his throat. Hours passed. The fighting continued. Then, gradually, it stopped. The ship's alarms went quiet. Teho heard Marines returning to the ship, their heavy footsteps echoing in the corridors. The kitchen door opened. Vextar stood there, his armor scorched and dented. Blood stained his scales, though Teho couldn't tell if it was his own or from enemies. We won, Vextar said simply. The colony is safe. Were there casualties? Teho asked. 12 wounded, 3 critical, no deaths. Vextar's scales shifted to tired gray. We were lucky. What do you need? Food. Real food. The warriors fought hard. They need more than nutrient paste. After battle, Teho stood up. Then I will cook. He and Minseo worked through the night. They prepared a victory feast. Roasted meats, rich soups, fresh bread that Jiwoo helped bake using a modified oven. The smell filled the ship, reaching even the wounded in medical bay. When the Marines gathered to eat, they came in their damaged armor, still carrying their weapons. They looked exhausted. Some had bandages over wounds. Others moved stiffly from injuries. But when they ate Teho's food, something changed. The weariness lifted. Warriors who had been silent began talking, sharing stories of the battle. Laughter started, tentative at first, then genuine. The meal became a celebration of survival. General Crossesvel stood and raised his cup. Today, we fought to protect the weak. We shed blood for people we have never met. This is what warriors do. But tonight, we eat food prepared with care by one who has shown us a new kind of strength. To Chef Kim Tae-ho, who reminds us what we fight for. To Tae-ho, the Marines roared. Vextar approached Tae-ho after the meal. I understand now, he said quietly. Why food matters. We fight in the dark and the cold. We face death regularly. But when we return, this waits for us. He gestured to the tables where Marines sat together, eating and laughing. This warmth, this connection. You gave us something to come back to. You always had each other, Taeho said. Yes, but we didn't know how to show it. We were warriors, nothing more. Now we are warriors who share meals, who cook together, who care if our brothers taste good food after battle. Vextar's scales showed deep gold. That is a gift beyond measure. 2 weeks later, Taeho stood on the bridge of the Times Eternal Fang Times as it approached the Kelvarian homeworld. The planet was massive, mostly red desert, with green oceans. Cities glittered across the surface like scattered jewels. Nervous? General Crosville asked. Terrified, Taeho admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. The High Council's feast hall was ancient, carved from red stone that had stood for thousands of years. Taeho learned that it had once been a warrior's gathering place, but hadn't been used for actual feasts in over a century. It had become a museum, a reminder of old traditions. You will cook here, Crosvell explained. The council wants to revive the old ways. You have inspired this. Taeho spent 2 days preparing. He had brought Min Seo and Vextar with him as assistants. Ji-woo managed equipment. Together, they planned a feast for 200 of the most powerful Kelvarians in the Empire. The night of the feast, Taeho's hands shook as he made final preparations. He had cooked for Marines, but these were generals, admirals, and council members, leaders who commanded fleets and controlled worlds. You have cooked for me, General Crosvell said, appearing in the kitchen. And I am more dangerous than any council member. You will be fine. The guests arrived in formal armor, engraved with honors and achievements. They filled the ancient hall, their scales showing skeptical colors. Many still believed that caring about food was weakness. Taeho served the same 4 courses he had made for the Marines, but refined and perfected. Each dish was better than the last time. Each flavor more balanced. He had been practicing for weeks. The first course brought silence. The second brought surprise. By the third course, even the most skeptical council members had stopped talking and were focused entirely on the food. The admiral of the fleet, a massive Kelvarian named Vossesran, stood up after the final course. I have eaten on 100 worlds. I have tasted food from every corner of known space. Nothing compares to this. He looked at Taeho. How is it possible? You use simple ingredients, basic techniques, yet the result is extraordinary. Because I cook with purpose, Taeho explained. Every dish tells a story. Every flavor has meaning. I am not just feeding your body, I am feeding your memory, your culture, your spirit. You speak like a warrior poet, Vossesran said. I speak like a chef who learned from my grandfather. He used to say that food is love, made visible. The council members looked at each other. Taeho saw their scales shifting to colors that meant they were thinking, considering. The head of the High Council, an ancient Kelvarian named Thexal, stood up. He was old even by their long-lived standards. His scales faded to pale silver. I remember the old feast halls, Thexal said, his voice cracking with age. Before efficiency, before industrialization, warriors would gather after battles and share the hunt. My father took me to these halls when I was young. He looked around the ancient room. We abandoned this, thought it was primitive, inefficient. But we lost something vital. He turned to Taeho. You have shown us what we lost, not through words or criticism, but through action, by cooking food that makes us remember who we were. Thexal bowed his head, a gesture of deepest respect. I propose that we revive the feast halls, that we make food and shared meals part of warrior training again, and I propose that Kim Taeho be named the first chef of the Kelvarian Empire, tasked with teaching this skill throughout our military. The council members roared their approval. The sound shook the ancient stones. Taeho stood there, overwhelmed. First chef of an entire empire? He had just wanted to pass his assignment and go home. General Crosvell placed a hand on his shoulder. What do you say, Chef Kim? Taeho thought about his grandfather, about the lessons he had learned. about how food could bridge the gap between worlds and species, about Minseo, Vextar, and all the Marines who had become his friends. "I accept," he said. "On one condition. My students must also teach. Minseo, Vextar, Raxton, and all the others I have trained. They understand both Kelvarian culture and cooking. They should spread this knowledge." "Agreed," Thexal said. The feast ended late into the night. Kelvarian generals and admirals who commanded star fleets stayed to talk with a human chef about recipes and techniques. Some shared memories of old foods they remembered from childhood. Others asked how to cook specific dishes. Months passed. Teho's program expanded across the fleet. Every major warship received cooking training. Mess halls were transformed into dining halls. The culture began to shift, slowly but steadily. On the Times Eternal Fang asterisk, the changes were most visible. The Marines who had once mocked Teho now gathered for communal meals every evening. They cooked together, shared recipes, told stories over food. One evening, Teho watched from the kitchen as the mess hall filled with Marines. They laughed and talked, passing plates of food they had cooked themselves. Vextar was teaching younger Marines how to properly season meat. Minseo was showing someone how to make bread. Raxton had opened a small bakery corner and was always experimenting with new desserts. Jiwoo stood next to Teho, also watching. "You did this," she said. "You changed an entire culture. I just cooked dinner." "No. You reminded them what it means to be alive." She smiled. "Earth is going to be very proud when they hear about this." General Crossesvel entered the kitchen. "We received new orders. There is a human colony 3 systems away, facing food shortages due to crop failure. The Council has assigned us to bring relief supplies." "That is good," Teho said. "There is more. The Council wants you to go to the colony. Show the humans there that Kelvarians are allies, not just warriors. They want you to cook a feast that brings both species together." Teho smiled. "I would love that." Before they left for the colony, the Marines requested one more meal. "A special one," they said. Teho agreed, curious about what they wanted. That evening, he was shocked to find the mess hall decorated. The Marines had hung fabric from the ceiling in human and Kelvarian colors. They had carved his name in stone and mounted it above the entrance. "What is all this?" Teho asked. Vextar stepped forward. "We wanted to honor you properly. You have given us so much. We wanted to give you something back." They had prepared the meal themselves. Every dish was something Teho had taught them. Some were perfect. Some were rough. All were made with care. Teho sat at the head of the table, General Crossesvel on one side, Vextar on the other. Around him sat 200 Marines who had become his family. They shared the meal, in warmth and laughter. "I came here expecting hostility," Teho said during the dinner. "I was mocked, challenged, tested. But you taught me something too. You taught me that strength and gentleness can exist together, that warriors can be fierce in battle and kind in peace. That food is not weakness, but connection. You taught us that first," Minseo said. "Then we taught each other." After dinner, as Teho cleaned up with Jiwoo's help, Vextar pulled him aside. "I need to tell you something. When you first arrived, I wanted to make you quit. I thought you were an insult to warriors, that humans were soft and weak and had nothing to teach us. I know. You changed my entire understanding of strength, of what it means to be a warrior. I will never forget that." Vextar placed his clawed hand over his heart. "You are my brother, Kim Teho. Not by blood, but by something stronger, by choice and respect." Teho felt tears in his eyes. "You are my brother too." The next morning, the Times Eternal Fang Times jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading for the human colony. Teho stood in the kitchen, preparing for the next feast. Through the viewport, stars streaked past in brilliant lines. He thought about his grandfather, who had taught him that cooking was about more than food. About his grandmother, who had shown him that every meal was an act of love. They would be proud of what he had accomplished. The kitchen door opened. Mincio entered, ready for the day's work. Then, Vextar, still struggling with knife skills, but improving. Then Raxton, covered in flour from his early morning baking. Ready to cook? Mincio asked. Tejo smiled. Always. Outside, space stretched endlessly in all directions. Inside, a kitchen on an alien warship filled with warmth and the smell of cooking food. And in between, a human chef who had proven that the greatest strength was not in weapons or armor, but in bringing people together over a shared meal. The warriors' table had been set, and it would never be empty again.